All right. Deion Burks comes in from Purdue. People are excited about him. I know that Nick Anderson, it seemed like every time he got his hands on the ball last year, was making big plays, and it seemed like he should have probably caught a few more. And Jalil Farouk had a nice season, and he's back.
Yeah, Mark, I think probably if you were to look at it from a holistic perspective on the offense, the wide receiver room is probably the strength of the offense, I would say at this point, as a total group. As you mentioned, Deion Burks coming in for Purdue is going to be one of those guys that stretches the field a little bit more, but I think more so, even more so than that, he's the guy that's probably going to take Drake Stoops' place in terms of being that slot receiver. Sometimes, obviously, Drake Stoops is not a stretch the defense guy, but he was a guy that would make the tough catches over the middle, in that slot position as well. So he'll be asked to be that guy. I think, obviously, athletically, and probably a little bit of a improvement over what Drake was, but the production. I mean, Drake caught over 80 balls last year, almost 1,000 yards, best season that he's had in Norman. So those are high. Those are big shoes to fill. But when you look down the line, Mark, whether you talk about Nick Anderson or Jaden Gibson, Andrell Anthony, Brendan Thompson, Jalil Farouk, Jaquays Padaway, they've got a lot of guys that will have the opportunity um, to compete. I think the one thing just to kind of keep in the back of your mind, Andrell Anthony had that ACL injury early in the year. He's going to be a guy that's probably not quite ready game one, but early on in the season, he'll be ready. Jalil Farouk, kind of the same situation. He had a little bit of a injury in spring that's going to keep him out the first part of the year. So you're just going to look for some of these other guys to make sure that they're able to step up. I would anticipate those guys, at least Andrew Anthony, Jalil Farouk, they'll probably be back by Tennessee at the latest. But yeah, to your point, Nick Anderson only 38 catches, but 10 of those 38 catches went for touchdowns, and almost 800 yards on those 38 catches. So this is a team that has the ability to they have the ability to stretch the field. You've got possession guys there as well. So this should be an area of strength for this team. Even early on, I think it'll give an opportunity for some of these kids like Jaden Gibson and Brendan Thompson and Jaquays Petaway to maybe step up a little bit and prove that they have the ability and they can go 7 or 8 deep on the receiving side of things. Jaden Gibson was a guy that Joe John Finley called out in their luncheon a couple of days ago was as a guy that not a lot of people that are talking about, but has an opportunity to be a big time contributor to this team. So yeah, I think it'll be exciting to look at and see how they perform. Had a couple of injuries within that group last year, and it will be exciting to see when they're healthy. What kind of production they'll be able to put together.
Our offensive breakdown, everyone. We will hit the defense next week. We appreciate you being here on the Voice of College Football. And so, best case scenario that's reasonable. What is this offense able to produce? What kind of numbers, if you want to describe it in that way, or just what kind of look is it in terms of run pass ratio? And what does this offense at its very best look like? And again, in a reasonable way.
So I think when you start about talking about this, Mark, I think obviously you're going to look at the differences between what Jeff Levy's offense was and has been, and what Steph Latrell's offense will be. I think there's a few things that you're going to see that are a little bit different. I think you're going to see. I mean, they'll go fast when they need to, but I think you're going to see a little bit more of a methodical approach with Seth Latrell versus what Jeff Levy's offense has been go go go, quick quick quick, right? Get up to the line as quick as snap get as many snaps in as you possibly can. So I think fundamentally, I think that's the first thing. They did this in the spring. They might even huddle a little bit, which is kind of a foreign concept just in college football in general, but particularly at Oklahoma. But I think they'll have the ability to be a little bit multiple. I think there was some struggles and some things that that Oklahoma had last year from an offensive perspective. Just they really didn't seem to have an identity from one week to the next. We talked a little bit about there would be a game where um, that Barnes would get a lot of carries, and then Sawchuk wouldn't get as many carries, and then it would seem to kind of flip flop the next week, right? So I think there was a little bit of kind of concern with continuity and what that looks like, and some of the game plan stuff was a little bit I think interesting in terms of the result. Just Jeff Lebby ran what he ran versus it kind of didn't really depend. It didn't really matter what kind of defense was being played against him, or there wasn't. I think there was some concern about what game plan week to week looked like versus what Seth Luttrell will be able. I mean, he's a fullback, right? So it's going to be um, I mean, fullback slash running back slash tight end, kind of what he did a little bit at Oklahoma towards the end of his career. So he's more of a smash mouth guy. So I would expect Oklahoma to maybe run a little bit more, particularly run a little bit more between the tackles than they did last year. But they're gonna be multiple as well. So I would say those are kind of the fundamental differences. Just not going quite as fast, being a little bit more ball control to kind of help the defense, being multiple, methodical, and just attacking your strengths. I think it's going to be just from a play call perspective. We saw that a little bit um, in the bowl game, right? With Latrell running things, and so I think it'll be similar, but I think you'll see some, just some small nuances that will look a little bit different. But I think really just understanding what the defense is giving you, that it'll be tailored to that, maybe a little bit more than just doing what you do, and then going from there.
So at the tight end position with Bauer Sharp coming in, we've got Jake Roberts and that crew. Do they have a tight end on the roster that you feel at this point is a guy that can really add to the receiving core, or are they just blocking guys that are functional in the passing game?
So I think Oklahoma's upgraded that position to a certain degree this season. I think there was a lot of excitement about bringing Austin Stogner back in last year, but just wasn't quite the same. He's had a couple injuries as well. Just wasn't quite that guy. And Oklahoma, quite frankly, just overall from the tight end position, just didn't get a lot of production. I think around 250 yards total from that position this past year, and only a couple of touchdowns. So obviously they went to the portal and got a couple of guys. Bauer Sharp, as you mentioned, and he's an actual converted running back from Southeast Louisiana. Jake Roberts from Baylor. They've got a true freshman, Devon Mitchell, who is an early enrollee, so he technically is still a senior. Will still be kind of a senior in high school from an age perspective coming in. But yeah, I think they've upgraded that position to a degree, but I don't think it's quite at the level that they would expect. But I think all signs kind of point to Bauer Sharp being that guy that's going to get the first. He's going to be the first guy, and so see what he'll be able to do. Not just astronomical numbers last year: 29 catches, 288 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And Jake Roberts was pretty similar at Baylor, 23 for 231. So I think it'll be a little bit of a combination of that what you'd mentioned, Mark. So not probably. I mean, not Jermaine Gresham, not Mark Andrews, clearly at that level, but maybe a little bit more than just kind of blocking an extra blocker out there. So Oklahoma will need to get a little bit more, especially in the red zone, from those guys.